Hello everybody and welcome to another video. Now first of all, this video was supposed to have been done yesterday, but I was having a hell of a lot of trouble with my internet yesterday, so I wasn't able to do that. But today we're going to be looking at a band called the Dali Thundering Concept. I've never ever heard of them before. They contacted me a few days ago asking me if I'd like to check out their latest single, which came out yesterday. So, you know, they sent it through to me, and as is my normal, I thought I'd have to check out who the band are, find out what I can about them, and I can tell you I didn't find out very much at all. In fact, all I can tell you is the Dali Thundering Concept are a French progressive metal band from Paris, France. That's all I can tell you. I couldn't find very much information about the band at all. From what I understand, they have had a couple of albums out, 1 or 2 albums out already. But really, I can't tell you much else. Now, the track we're going to be looking at is a track called Lost in Transaction, featuring Matteo Gelsomino from Salem, or Salthream. As, you know, they've randomly stuck a number in the middle of it, and you know how I feel about names like that. Oh, they annoy me. And Raphael Weinroth-Browne from Leprous. Not familiar with either of those bands, but there you go. Unfortunately, there are no lyrics available for this track, so I don't have that. So we're just going to be checking out this piece of music and seeing what we get. So, Lost in Transaction by the Dali Thundering Concept. Let's have a look.
Purpose I'll pretend. Wanna feel but it's all bland, even though addictions come in 1,000 fucking brands. When anxiety subsides, I attempt to look for signs, trying to read the future, murmured omens in the coffee stains. Trying to read the future, gently playing with guilt and lust for fame.
You wanna see the future, open your eyes, discover the prize at the end of the update in the place of opinion. We'll chant your name, let us be your minions. Our master's reign, we'll roll the blade. Even gods need to catch a break. The pressure will just blow away with a taste of classic pleasure.
Gotta fucking get it! With a stride to the chosen! Get the eye with the prize in a mountain! With a stride to the chosen! Bring pride to the brand and the golden! Time to settle fucking good! But the kids are getting to a blade!
Well, that was Lost in Transaction by the Dali Thundering Concept. I'm not sure what to say about that one. I've got very, very mixed feelings about that. Progressive metal for me is a very sensitive sort of mind space kind of music for me, because some of it works very, very well. I mean, you listen to bands like Opeth, they're classified as progressive metal, and they sound great pretty much most of the time. But there are other prog bands that I just don't get, because the music sounds so messy and disjointed. You know, it just makes no sense to me, because it doesn't flow together. It doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound like a cohesive piece of music. This is sort of somewhere in between. There are elements to it I really, really like. Like, towards the end, there was that sort of bit that had like the choir behind it, and that just sounded amazing. And that bit right at the end, that musical, almost vaudeville sort of piece of music right towards the end, again, sounded great. There were elements throughout the track which sounded really, really good. You know, you had really strong, powerful, heavy elements, but then again, there were some transactions between pieces. There were some, what I call fret wanking moments, where people are just going twiddly all over the fretboard, which just sounds messy to me. This is just my personal opinion. You know, I think trying to be too overly technical and fiddly in music, it can work to a certain extent, but if you push it too far, it just comes across as messy. And it's, you know, it's, I personally don't like that sort of thing. You know, I like music to have a flow to it. I like it to sort of, you know, I like to be able to move through the music and not have these sudden, very jarring transitions between one piece of music and the next. And, you know, you do get that in this track. And again, you know, I'm not taking anything away from the band. They're obviously very, very talented musicians, obviously very, very talented singers. And like I said, there are elements to this track that I do really like. You know, when it came to certain parts of the main track, you know, with the heavy riffs and stuff like that, it sounded really, really good. But when it starts getting overly technical, a bit fiddly, and then starts sort of jerking about differently, it ruins the pacing of the song for me. And it sort of, I like to be able to sort of fall into music and sort of just sit there, relax, and let my mind sort of flow through it. But when you come to those really sort of jarring transitions between one piece of music and the next, it really sort of pulls me out, and it sort of spoils my enjoyment of the piece of music. And, you know, that's probably different for other people, which is fine. It's just, for me personally, you know, I like to just let my mind go and not all of a sudden have this sort of screeching car crash that sort of pulls me out of my enjoyment of the music and makes me go, okay, what the hell just happened? You know, I like to be able to just sort of sit there, chill out, relax, and listen. The vocal performances, very, very good, very much in the vein of sort of metalcore sort of style vocals, which at certain points I don't think worked well with the music, but for the most part it did. You know, there were times when the music and the vocal didn't seem to really fit together too well, but again, that's just my personal opinion of it. And like I said, progressive metal is a sensitive subject for me, because I can either really, really like it, or it can be really quite bad. And like I said, this is sort of somewhere in the middle for me. You know, there are elements to it that I really do like. Some elements that I thought were absolutely amazing, like I said, towards the end, where they had that sort of choir in their background. I thought that piece of the song was absolutely stunning. It was absolutely beautiful. And then, of course, like I said, the instrumental element right at the end, again, I thought sounded great. You know, the actual tone of the guitars, the actual skill and ability to perform this kind of music is amazing. You know, all credit where it's due. It's fantastically performed. But like I said, there are elements to it that just don't sit well with me personally. So, again, this is another one of those bands where I'd have to listen to more of their material to get a more sort of rounded idea of who they are. Because, you know, it says featuring Matteo, Gelsomino, and Raphael Weinroth-Browne. I have no idea who those people are. Were they the two singers? Do they not normally have singers or lyrics or vocals throughout their music? I don't know. For all I know, one of them could have been a guest guitarist. I don't know. One of them could be a guest drummer. I don't know. So, you know, I have no idea what this band sounds like other than this track. You know, I have no idea what they sound like outside this, so I will have to check them out again to get a more sort of complete idea of who they are. Because, you know, I'm not just going to write them off saying, you know, this band is not for me just because of one piece of music. You know, it's a good piece of music. I don't think I'd go out of my way to listen to it, personally. But, you know, I wouldn't be offended if someone played it. So I do need to investigate them a little bit deeper, but, you know, I don't really know what else I can say about that. Like I said, I can't really investigate the lyrics to the track, although most of the lyrics were subtitled throughout that track. I don't actually have a copy of the lyrics here to look through to try and discern any meaning behind it, and I was concentrating so much on the video that I wasn't actually managing to get much information from the lyrics that I was seeing. But anyway, I don't really know what else I can say about that, so I'm going to leave that as it is. Now, if anybody would like to suggest a track for me to react to them, please do so by all means. You can drop a comment in the comment section below, or message me on my Facebook or my Instagram, or you could even message me through my Patreon, where you could also help to support this channel, which would of course be a great help to me, since, you know, every piece of content I create for this channel immediately gets demonetized. And I do put a lot of effort into making these videos. I put a lot of time in as well, and, you know, I get absolutely nothing for the amount of effort that I put in. So, you know, so it's a little bit annoying, you know, because, you know, I can understand the bands getting, you know, paid for the fact that I'm using their material, but the fact that they get all of it is a little bit galling, you know, because their music doesn't take up the entirety of the piece of work, and, you know, I put a lot of time and effort into this and I get absolutely nothing. But, you know, that's what it is. There is an option in Patreon where you can get your suggestion jumped to the front of the queue if you should so desire it. There is a limit on how frequently you can do that, and that's just to be fair to people who make suggestions through more usual means like YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook comments. And if you do make a suggestion through YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram comments, do note it could take me a while to get around to your suggestion, since I do get suggested so many new tracks every single day that my list grows faster than I can record the videos. But I do write down every suggestion I get, so it should get done eventually. It just might take a while to get around to it, unfortunately. Also, MetalHead Reacts is a proud supporter of the Sophie Lancaster Foundation, a British-based charity whose goal is to put an end to hate crime. And one of the main facets of that is hate crimes aimed at people of the alternative culture. And that's something I believe in very, very strongly, something I'm very, very passionate about. Because, you know, it's something I've had to deal with for most of my life, so have many of my friends and family. But it's also something that is very, very widely ignored. It sort of gets brushed to the side and no one pays any attention to it because they think it's not a real problem. But the fact of the matter is, every day, all around the world, hundreds, if not thousands of people from the alternative community are getting attacked just purely for the fact that they listen to different kinds of music and wear different clothing. And we're not just talking about, like, insults being shouted or, you know, getting a shoulder bump as they walk down the street. We're talking about real violent crimes where people are getting brutally and violently attacked. People are getting hospitalized, sometimes with broken limbs and sometimes even more life-threatening injuries. And these things just sort of get brushed under the carpet and ignored. Nothing gets said. You know, every day we hear about all these other hate crimes like sexism, racism, homophobia, transphobia, religious hatred, ableism, etc. We hear these on a daily basis. You know, from the most heinous and violent of these crimes where someone is brutally murdered because of the colour of their skin or their religious beliefs or because of their sexual identity, down to the most petty and pathetic of these crimes where some entitled white woman is calling the police because a family of colour are having a picnic in a public space. We hear every facet of these crimes every single day. in every media platform imaginable. But as soon as it comes to someone from the alternative community getting violently, brutally attacked, absolute silence. The last time there was widespread talk about someone from the alternative community getting attacked was about 14 to 15 years ago, when Sophie Lancaster and her boyfriend Rob Maltby were brutally and violently attacked by a group of 5 or 6 people who beat them, kicked them, punched them, knocked them to the ground and stamped on their heads so violently that they both ended up in comas. Now thankfully Rob Maltby survived this attack. He was in a coma for around about a week and a half, maybe a little bit longer, but he survived the attack. Sophie Lancaster, on the other hand, she was in a coma for 13 days before she succumbed to her injuries and she died. This young woman was 20 years old and was beaten to death just because a group of small-minded people couldn't handle the fact that she liked something different. The fact that she liked to dress in different clothing. And they couldn't handle that fact. So, rather than taking into consideration all the other parts of her life, she was a big fan of Harry Potter, as was most of the planet at the time. But just because they've seen this one outward sign that she doesn't fit in, they think that it was an acceptable thing to violently and brutally attack her and beat her to death. Now, when this happened, this was all over the news, as rightfully it should have been. But, over time, other news stories came in and it sort of faded into the distance, as, all things do. But the thing is, in the 14 to 15 years since that has happened, we've not heard any widespread talk about anything similar. But I know for a fact that there have been hundreds, if not thousands, of similar attacks, very similar to that, in that time space. Just a couple of years ago, a young woman in Glasgow was violently and brutally beaten twice on the same night by the same group of people within a matter of minutes. This wasn't in the newspapers. This wasn't all over Facebook. This wasn't on TV being reported that this young woman had been violently and brutally assaulted twice on the same night. Nothing was said. There was no attention brought to this because it was a violent attack brought on by the fact that she listened to alternative music. Nothing was said. Now, if this had been homophobically based, if it had been racially based, if this had been anything else, this would have been all over the news. There would have been a huge outcry. But no, because this was a young person getting violently attacked because of their taste in music, nothing was said. And that's unacceptable. But I guarantee you, if this young woman had died as a result of her attack, then this would have been all over the news. Then there would have been hundreds of people going, oh, this is such a tragedy. These things shouldn't be happening anymore. Oh, how bad is this? Then they would suddenly be acting like they care. And that is even more disgusting. We shouldn't have to wait for someone to die before something gets done. We shouldn't have to wait for someone to lose their life before we start talking about this. It shouldn't have to get that far. Because Sophie Lancaster isn't the first person to lose their life as a consequence of this. That's just the most recent one that was spoken about. And like I said, that was 14 to 15 years ago. Something needs to be done before what happened to Sophie Lancaster happens again. We cannot allow it to continue. We cannot allow people to have to fear for their lives just because they listen to something different. Why Why is someone's taste in music such a trigger point for people? Why do people think it's okay to violently and brutally assault someone just because they listen to something different or wear different clothing? It's unacceptable, but it's been going on for decades, and it needs to stop. And this is what the Sophie Lancaster Foundation is all about. They don't want to see another family go through what they went through when they had to watch their daughter slowly die over the course of 2 weeks. They don't want other people to have to suffer just because they like something different. Everybody has the right to listen to whatever they want. Everybody has the right to be an individual and be who they want to be. No one else has the right to dictate to anyone what they can or cannot do. So if you'd like to find out more about the Sophie Lancaster Foundation, there is a link to their website in the description below. You can go over there, find out what they're working on at the moment, find out what their overall goal is, because they can explain it a hell of a lot better than I can. And if you can help them out in any small way, obviously don't feel obligated to do so, but if you can help them out in any small way, whether it be a small donation through their website or something as simple as one of these Sophie wristbands, maybe even that one, they've got a whole bunch of other really cool stuff over on their web store, but the smallest amount can make the biggest difference, and the sooner we bring more attention to this, the sooner we get more people talking about this, the sooner we can help to stamp out prejudice, hatred and intolerance everywhere. But I'm going to leave that as it is for the time being. Thank you all very, very much for watching. I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.